The Disability Report with Karen Key.
When I first came across Christopher Fenter, also known as the blind scooter guy, as he likes to call himself, on an app that I use called Be Specular. Now, I was so intrigued by his story, I went online and I found out more, and I discovered a TED talk he gave in Cape Town. I found out that he grew up wanting to be one of the famous 5 or secret 7 from Enid Blyton's children's books, and that his love of adventure had stayed with him into adulthood. On one of his epic adventures, he took a 32,000-kilometre, 8-month trip through 21 countries, all the way from Cape Town to Dublin in Ireland, on a little 150cc LML Vespa scooter. Now, we all know how small those are, and he had no support vehicle. The expedition was a publicity stunt to raise awareness for a local children's hospital, but unfortunately, an illness contracted during the ride through Africa ultimately led to him losing his sight in 2014. Now, I've invited him to join us this evening to inspire you as much as he has inspired me. Christopher, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Karen. Good evening to you.
I must say, I was absolutely blown away by your TED Talk. I watched this and I just thought to myself, I can't actually believe that. I know maybe this just sounds a little bit, I don't quite know, patronizing perhaps. I was blown away by how together you were.
Thank you very much. I promise you I'm not always that together.
Because I don't know whether my calculations were correct. You lost your sight in 2014. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
It's now 2017.
Yeah,
it's
a couple
3 years.
months, over 3 years, correct. Yeah.
And you seem to have taken this all in your stride.
Well, to quote the famous Rastafarian Bob Marley, he said, "You never know how strong you are until being strong is your only choice."
Gosh, well, did I get the story right? You were actually going through Africa on your scooter, and you were not well halfway through, and you came home, and they couldn't find out what was wrong with you.
Right. Yeah, I flew home from Tanzania. I got medical treatment and was misdiagnosed. Of course, the doctors pumped me full of vitamins and antibiotics and said, "You're well enough to go and continue and complete the trip." So I rejoined the rest of my team. I actually flew into Europe and traveled south and met them when they arrived across the Med, and completed the ride. And when I got home, it just fell apart, and nobody knew what was wrong until all of a sudden my sight disappeared, and then very quickly they diagnosed that I'd had this virus that had attacked my retinas, and unfortunately, although they managed to save my life, they could do nothing about my sight.
You seem to be a very strong, positive person. How did you do that? Because I think people often want to know, how did you get to this place now so quickly?
I've got a very good support system. I've got a very loving wife. She's been at my side, and I'm determined. I set out to be a travel and adventure writer. I wanted to become an adventurer and find a way by any means of making that happen. The only difference now is that I am a blind travel and adventure writer. So I'm still living the course that I want to do. I just have some new challenges and some interesting little tweaks to my adventures.
Well, people can follow where you're going and what you're doing. You've got a blog and there's a website, and people can go and have a look. You're still adventuring out there, doing your thing.
Absolutely, yes. I know. I've managed to, I worked as a chef. My career was in the culinary field, and to keep the adventurous spirit alive, of course, I worked all over the world. But I wanted to be a storyteller. I wanted to be a writer. So now I have just found a new way of seeing the world. I see it now by sound, by smell, by taste, and by touch. And of course, when I write articles for tourism-based organizations, I write about how I experience. For example, I just recently did a story about the Knysna Elephant Park, and someone might think, well, how can a blind man go and enjoy seeing some elephants? Well, I assure you, it's an experience that's phenomenal, and there is a different connection that you have, and the elephants come to you, and you touch them, and you can smell, and you can listen, and you're so much more aware than a sighted person. They say that sight accounts for 75% of your senses. Well, when you lose it, you're certainly forced to use the rest of them at a much higher level.
I was about to ask you, your other senses now must be extremely heightened.
Well, it's a questionable thing. You're just forced to use them because you have to. From working in the culinary field, I assume that I always tasted things and smelled things more than I should anyway. But that said, I'm aware more. I hear things that other people. I stop and I listen. It's not that other people can't hear the 5 sounds that I've already picked up on. I just stop and I actually focus to the point that I've become aware of them. I use them as a way of navigating. Sometimes we were walking in a supermarket and I just know that there's a column next to me, for example, because I've heard the distinction in the echo in our conversation. It just sounds different. And I just know there's a wall there. You get used to that because you're forced to.
Quite remarkable. But listening to your TED Talk, apparently you haven't given up your love of cooking.
I haven't. My wife says that she's very lucky. I think I'm the lucky one, but I do all the cooking at home. And tomorrow night we've got some friends coming, and I have to cook a meal for them. And I do all the cooking at home. Working as a chef is it's a great career. It's hard work. It's labor intensive. It's hour intensive. And it's not what I wanted to do. Something just told me that I want to do something else. Now that I get to cook for pleasure at home, it's wonderful. I have a great time doing it. I'm just not going to be in a culinary school or on a remote island cooking again. Now it'll be strictly at home. I'm going to be a storyteller. I'm going to speak, and I'm going to have adventures, travel, and I'm going to write and share my stories with the world.
You're working on a book, I see, on your website.
My book is being edited as we speak.
Yes.
If my editor just completes things in the next couple of weeks, we should have it on the shelves in the next, let's hope, in the next month or two.
And what is it going to be called? Tell the listeners
It's
what
called
it is.
How I Became the Blind Scooter Guy, and it's the story of my Cape Town to Dublin by scooter expedition. We of course started at the Red Cross War Memorial Children's Hospital here in Cape Town, and we rode all the way to Our Lady's Children's Hospital in Dublin, Ireland. And the trip details the preparation, the planning, and then, of course, the actual adventure and everything that happened to me, and how I overcame the obstacles that I thought were so insurmountable to ultimately become Chris, the blind scooter guy. I have to tell you where the blind scooter guy thing comes in.
Because when I actually told somebody that I was interviewing Chris Fenter, the blind scooter guy, she said to me, "You can't call him that." I said, "I'm not calling him that. He's calling himself that."
No, look, that whole PC correct thing can just take a shelf in if you ask me. Look, people, names like Chris, Dave, Mike, they're very common. So I was a scooter collector and enthusiast, and I always would call someone and say, "Hey, it's Chris." And they'd be like, "Which Chris?" And I had to be Chris, the scooter guy. And then I became Chris, the blind guy. And that didn't suit me. So the blind scooter guy was born, and we had something to call the website and something to write about. And so now I'm lovingly known as Chris, the blind scooter guy.
Okay.
And yeah, all good.
I love your picture on the cover of your book. I've seen the sort of on your website. You've got a picture of what the cover is going to be, and it's a picture from your trip, where you sort of relaxing on the Vespa.
Yeah, that's by Michael Tim, yes, photographer, local photographer. That's a fun picture we had in my front yard.
The one thing I must just tell you that I really enjoyed was it was at on your TED Talk thing, where you actually played a clip of your trip. And you used the audio descriptor on there. And I've actually interviewed the people that did that, right? Gosh, it was a couple of years ago when they started doing audio description. It was quite the most remarkable thing, because I did do what you said. I closed my eyes and I just listened. And it's amazing what you can imagine in your head.
Yeah, what's quite interesting is to watch it twice. And then, the first time with your eyes closed and see what you would see then versus what you actually see. And sometimes it's not right. For example, I have no idea what you look like. But just chatting to you, I have got this image in my mind, and I've drawn it, and it doesn't have to be correct. It's something. It's not that we as the blind see nothing. We do draw a picture. It might not be totally correct, but that doesn't matter. It just is real to us.
Absolutely. Now, the one thing that was quite remarkable, and it's how I actually found out about you, because I've been on Be Specular from when it started, and it's something that I really enjoyed doing. And one of your things that you say is, in an accessible world, a blind man can do anything that a sighted person is able to. And that is a large part of your life. Yes.
In my TED Talk, yes, it was we can. There are obstacles that we have to find ways of either overcoming, and where we can't overcome them, we have to find ways around them. And we find ways around them by using technology, by using apps. And luckily, we live in an age where technology is at our fingertips. I'm an Apple fanatic, so I use an iPhone and an iMac. And one of the apps is called Bespecula. It's actually developed by a young South African girl and an Italian guy who paired together a group of sighted volunteers and the visually impaired community. We'd like to call ourselves VIPs.
And I'm known, I think, as a sightling, if that's correct.
And you'd be a sightly,
Yes.
or a sightly.
Sightling.
They call you. So basically what happens if I'm wanting to know if it's about to be a red or white onion or if it's a red or white onion that I'm about to chop, and I want to know which it is, I can take a picture of it and send it through using this app, and it goes beep on your phone, and it says, it poses my question, either in text or in voice, and then you can reply either in text or voice. It probably takes about 30 seconds to a minute. And this is incredibly useful if you're wanting to check the expiry date on your milk, or open the can of sweet corn versus can of peaches, because that could make a disaster
Yes.
in the kitchen. But it's also useful if you've dropped a cap, for example, while walking along the driveway and you can't find it, or you're wanting to check your dosage on your medicine bottle, things like that. So there are a few apps that do similar things, but this one I've found to be incredibly quick, incredibly user-friendly, and I use it almost every day.
I had one yesterday from a lady who was in a shop in America somewhere, because I realized that because the price was in dollars, and she was worried that they were ripping her off, and she wanted to know what the actual price was of the thing. So I could tell her. It was $249.90. I could tell her. Don't know what it was supposed to be.
What they actually do is they pair you generally as much as possible with people that are within your same age bracket and within your same geographical location. So if you're in Cape Town or if you're in Johannesburg, they're going to try to find someone that's as close as possible. But of course, the amount of limited volunteers that are out there determine what can be used and what can't.
Mine are mostly overseas. I get mostly from the UK and America, strangely.
I
So
suppose it depends what time of day you would be looking at. And the reality of the situation is, how many blind people are there in South Africa that actually have the technology, that have the app on their technology, that know about it, know how to use it, that have the data to use it, that then need to use it.
Yes.
We're a small community based in the world. There's 285 blind people, 285 million blind people around the world, of which 40 million are totally blind.
it's
In
all
South Africa, I think we're 1 million, very close to 1 million, just under 1 million legally blind people. So, unfortunately, that technology is not in the hands of everybody.
And you talk about, it's in an accessible world, and this is one thing it's potentially accessible, but there are barriers to it.
There are certain ways that people can make themselves accessible. As I say in my TED Talk, the community needs to understand. If, for example, tourism. I write about tourism, and I write about Nice and Elephant Park and the Rovers Rail and all sorts of experiences as the sightless, adventuring visitor. We've just had a massive campaign with SA Tourism where they're trying to promote South Africa as a totally accessible tourist site, not only to the blind community, but also to disabled people in general, to people in wheelchairs, people that need to have quick access to medicine and things like that. But communities are not aware. Restaurants, if they just train their staff, it makes a difference. If pictures posted on websites just are labeled properly, it makes a difference. If you are just able to find the toilet with ease, it makes a difference. There are so many things that corporations can do. Small businesses, a little B&B, a restaurant, a park, recreation, anything. They can all make a difference. And it doesn't have to cost anything. It shouldn't be you shouldn't be trying to consider making yourself accessible. You should just make it part of your business plan.
My next guest is actually from an organization here called People for Awareness on Disability Issues, and that's what they're doing. They're going into corporates, they're going into all sorts of different big and small businesses, just trying to raise the awareness of, just as you say, just doing possibly sometimes just very small things.
As I say in my talk, there's many times when I sit in the restaurant just to have the waiter or waitress come along and look at my good wife and ask her what I would like to eat. And she always makes a point of saying, well, why don't you ask him? Which is the right thing to do, because we don't want to fight with people. We just want people to learn. And I suppose that I would have been just as guilty before losing my sight, I don't recall meeting another blind person. I don't recall ever speaking to one. And aside from the guy begging at the traffic light, I don't even think I saw one. So I was just as guilty. I had no idea.
And now you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And doing what you do, though, Chris, you're actually making a difference, because you are such an inspiration to so many people out there, myself included. And I just sort of think, gosh, well, if you can do all of this, and you always make me feel quite guilty now for not doing enough stuff.
Well, the next time you post a picture on Facebook, rather than say that it is a selfie,
I've never ever done that, just let me tell you, ever.
Well, say that it is, instead of saying, assuming that we know it's a picture of you at Cape Point or your new car or whatever, say what it is, say what color it is, and things like that. Even these organizations, these programs like Facebook and Twitter and that, they have inbuilt algorithms that help determine what they are showing. They will tell you it's a lady with a blue top standing in front of a tree, but they don't know what tree it is. They don't know where it is. They don't know that you are doing something special, putting a face or that could be relevant to that picture. So the world could just be made so much more accessible if people were just a little bit aware.
The one thing I did find rather interesting was the fact you were talking about, also in your TED talk, about possibly doing online shopping, of which I'm a complete addict. But you said if they don't tell you that that's where the trolley is to sort of, cash out, they've lost your business. So,
You can't do business with us, 285 million of us. If that little shopping trolley, which looks lovely, doesn't say checkout when we hover over it, forget it. We don't know it's a shopping trolley. It just says button, icon. Many radio stations, they have apps, websites that are inaccessible, and guess what? We don't listen to them.
So, that's a small thing. It's just adding a little...
What else, Karen? It's the law. It's not just something that we would like to have. It's the law.
And yet nothing's being done.
Well, as you know, we're a third world country disguised in many ways as a first world country, and many parts of the law are, although regulated, they're not enforced to the extent that they should be. There are other priorities, and of course our departments that fight crime have much more serious things to fight, but these are things that businesses, as I said, they don't have to do anything special. We don't, as a disabled community, expect special treatment, just equal treatment. That's all.
And also the other thing about employment, that's the other thing. It's laughable, quite frankly.
Well, when you speak to a hotel reservation agent, for example, you don't know if you're speaking to a blind person or not. And the computer software, the screen readers, they can do anything that a sighted person is able to do. And then from an employer's point of view, the advantage of having that blind person working for you, the first thing is they're not going to be on Gumtree and looking at the job classifieds every 5 minutes. They're going to be very pleased that they've got a job. They're not going to be distracted. They're going to focus. They're going to do their job, and they're going to do it well.
I don't know whether you probably are aware of the hotel in Newlands that employs a large percentage of people are hearing impaired.
Yeah.
And what they've done there is remarkable. And they're doing things where the guests are actually finding it educational, if you like, to interact with people that are hearing impaired because they're learning sign language.
It gives them a unique selling point.
Absolutely.
Why not? Let them claim it. Let them have it.
I think what they're doing, though, they're working with Deaf SA, though. That's the whole.
They're doing phenomenal work. It's brilliant, yeah. And just guide dog access and things like that. It can mean the world if people are just aware. Where security guards at shopping malls just stop a blind person with a sighted guide dog, it's not fair. It's not right, and it's not legal.
No.
And most importantly, it's not necessary.
So where are you going from here, Chris? I almost dread to ask. The list is endless.
As I said, it's busy being published as we speak, and my next adventure is hold on to your seat. It's called the Multifaceted Mediterranean Mobility Meander. So I'm between March and May of the new year. I'm going to be traveling between Sicily and southern France, and I will be visiting some of the tourist sites and exploring all forms of mobility. So whether it be sea kayaking, road, rail, ocean, air, you name it, I'm going to go and travel as a blind man. And my good wife is coming along, and she will be taking pictures and helping me create a story that I can showcase what it feels like. And I'm most looking forward to not visiting new places, although I am looking forward to visiting new places, but I'm most looking forward to visiting places that I've seen before. Because now, I just wonder if I'm going to see them very differently without my eyes, just with my remaining four senses. I bet you that I see them a lot more clearly.
Well, I'm dying to speak with you when you get back. We'll have to chat about that because that sounds absolutely amazing.
It should be fun, yeah. So we're planning our next big adventure, and of course that will be the next trip. Yeah.
Well, I look very forward to chatting with you when you come back. You said March to when next year?
March to May.
March to May. Well, I hope you can talk to you in June then.
Well, and in the meantime, I'm doing a lot of professional speaking, so public speaking events, if corporates need someone to come and address their delegates and educate them on accessibility and give them a little bit of information about how things can be made more suitable and how blind people can help their organizations, then hit me up.
Well, I'll give out your website address in a moment. People can go and have a look. But Chris, thank you so very much indeed for joining me on the show this evening.
Thank you very much, Corin. Great to chat.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night, ciao.
Bye-bye. Christopher Fenter, who calls himself the Blind Scooter Guy. And if you'd like to find out more about him, you can take a look at his website. It's www.blindscooterguy.com.